Good morning, everybody. It's Mr. Adam, and I am here to give a science presentation on taxonomic classification, taxonomy. Look closely here. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. This is the taxonomy we use to classify living organisms. And one thing I want to talk about briefly historically, Carl Linnaeus in his Systema Natura and other publications basically came up with a taxonomic system. It's not exactly this one today. I believe he went kingdom, phylum, and then skipped down a few. The study of taxonomy is the study of how we classify things. And the interesting thing is today, following on Carl Linnaeus, we have a ranking system that begins with life, and then a domain, and then kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So this presentation is how this actually works. So as a kid, how am I supposed to make this abstract principle be real for you? So this is a presentation I learned during my Montessori training, and it's a really fun one, and I'm going to share it with you today. So in honor of Carl Linnaeus and taxonomy and classification of organisms, here we go. This is the kingdom of buttons. Oh, look at them. Aren't they beautiful? Boom. There is my kingdom of buttons. And in this beautiful kingdom of buttons, I have buttons of all shapes and sizes and colors. What a beautiful kingdom of buttons. How am I going to organize a specific group of buttons in here? How am I going to go from general kingdom of buttons to something very specific? Say, for example, an orange transparent button. If this was the animal or plant kingdom, how do I go from the kingdom of plantae all the way down to a Venus flytrap? How do I go from Animalia all the way down to a squirrel? Okay, so how do I do that? So this is my kingdom, and I'm going to do a subset within the kingdom, and we're going to organize under a phylum, phyla from the Greek for tribe. We're going to come down to a phylum, and I'm going to find all my orange buttons, and I'm going to move them down here to my phylum. The phylum is all of my orange buttons. Those of you at home are probably shaking your heads or nodding or groaning because, oh, it's orange, Mr. Adam. That's right, orange is my favorite color. So when I created this work, I created it in honor of the color orange so that I could classify and organize buttons of my favorite color. So I've got all different shapes and sizes of orange buttons here. I don't know if you can see them all, but I'm doing the best I can to move quickly through this to get to a phylum of all my orange buttons. Now notice, I'm taking the buttons out of the kingdom of buttons, but that doesn't mean that the orange buttons are not part of the kingdom. They are a subset of the kingdom of buttons. So all of these orange buttons that are going into the phylum here are indeed part of the kingdom of buttons still. Don't feel bad. Don't think they got kicked out of the kingdom. No, they are still part of it. They are just a subset under the kingdom. So at home, if you do have buttons, parents, that you can use to teach your kids this work, it's a great one I found because kids love organizing things. They love getting their hands busy and doing that work. It's a lot of fun for me too. So this is a fun one. I also have one here at school that I've created with keys. It's a little bit more difficult because you have to be more specific about some of your classification principles, your kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. But as I'm organizing into my phylum of orange buttons here, I do want to say, parents that at home, if you can do this with buttons, that's great. If you can do it with something else, that's great too. Sometimes kids try to do this and they find out that they can only go down so far because they picked an organization scheme that doesn't quite take it all the way down to species. That is okay. So that is perfectly fine. Find my orange buttons here. The kids really don't like it when I miss buttons. So I'm going to do my very best here to organize them in my kingdom. There's probably somebody saying, hey, you missed one. And that's okay. I don't mind. I'm still searching for those orange buttons. Sometimes the kids are very specific and they say, Mr. Adam, that's not orange, or that's not that. So just take their word for it. They know better than you do, probably. Definitely know better than me. So as I move forward here, I am, oh, my screen went dark again. Sorry about that. Gotta fix that under my settings. All right, so just remember, parents and kids, the orange buttons, the phylum here, are a subset of the kingdom of buttons. Don't feel bad. They are not left out of the kingdom. They didn't get kicked out. They are still a part of the kingdom. And I think I've got almost all of my orange buttons. I think I got them. Okay. If I don't, kids, deeply apologize. But I think I've done the best I can. So, yes, so under my kingdom of buttons, I have a phylum of orange buttons. And what comes after kingdom phylum? That's right, it is class. Okay, and what I have here is a class. I am trying to find all of the orange buttons that have 2 holes instead of 1 or 4 or whatever. Notice, I'm not going to go back to the kingdom of buttons because I am trying to get more specific. This subset of 2 holes will be orange buttons that have 2 holes. So I'm not going to pull all of the buttons with 2 holes. I'm only going to pull the buttons with 2 holes from my phylum because I'm getting more specific within the phylum of the orange buttons. This is how taxonomy works. We go from general to specific. So here we go. This looks like technically 1, not doing that, 2, okay, 2, and you will notice, kids, that as we move down, we're going to have less, obviously, than the kingdom, and most likely less than the phylum. Sometimes it doesn't always work out like that, but most times it does. Let's see here. 2. A lot of these have 4, so don't worry though, kids. All of these orange buttons with 2 holes are still part of the phylum of orange. It's just that they are in a class of their own. We have to remember that. When we are studying, we go from general to specific. And that's how taxonomy works. So we owe a lot to Carl Linnaeus. By the way, he lived from 1707 to 1778. Good, looks like he was an Enlightenment figure. Scientific revolution. Fabulous. All right, double checking to make sure I'm getting all the buttons with 2 holes here. Oh, dear Lord, how did I miss those? That one's got 1. 4, oh, 2, 4, 1, 4. All right, it looks like I have done a good job of organizing my buttons. So I have the kingdom of buttons, and then I have the phylum of the orange buttons. Now, the class of 2-holed orange buttons are part of the phylum of orange and are still a part of the kingdom. So we are just getting more specific as we organize. So it goes kingdom, phylum, class. The next one, can you guess it? That's right, it's right there on the sheet. It is order. So we're going to go to the order of buttons with curves. Now, here's the issue. We have to remember that curves mean that we can't have angles. And I want you to look at some of these. Technically, this button here, this square button, yes, those are curved, but I'm going to treat those as straight edges. I'm going to treat that like a square, like a geometric square. And I'm going to treat this like a hexagon here. So I'm not going to treat these as if they're rounded edges, even though they are. I'm going to treat them as shapes. So from this point, I am going to go with the curved. So that means with curves on them. Okay. Yeah, let's see here. These have curves, right, on the top of that heart-shaped button. So there's a curve there. All the circle ones are obviously curves. Oh, this one is definitely a curved ellipsoid oval shape there. Here's another round one, a heart one. Oh, I just bumped one accidentally in there, but that is correct. He's got curves. So we are in an order of buttons with curves. Okay. Oh, this one definitely has curves. If you can see it, it's a flower. It's got curves. So that is correct. And what we are left with on the class side of things is all of those that have two holes, but the order is only those with two holes that are curved. So notice we've gone from the kingdom of buttons to a phylum of all the orange buttons, and from that phylum we had the class of all the orange buttons with two holes, and now we are in the order of all the orange buttons with two holes that are curved. Okay? So we're going to get more specific as we move into the family. Let me move this over here for you. So the family is going to be all of those that have one curve, kids. So one curve. Let's go for it. Does this have one curve? Nope. Does this have one curve? No. And of course there's the other one here. Does that have one curve? Nope. So let's move all the ones with only one curve. One curve, a circle only has one curve. It's just the eternal figure. So does this oval / ellipse here have one curve. So the family is going to be all of those that have one curve but have two holes that are orange buttons. It's the family that we're building here. And don't feel bad, they are still part of the order here. They didn't get kicked out. We are just moving them down to show the specificity of the family here. And it looks like we've got a very robust family of buttons here. This family looks like it's actually more rare in the kingdom of buttons. We're in the world of buttons. It looks like if you have a family of multiple curves, if I had that, it would be a much more rare sort of button out there. So very interesting. So a family of one curves is part of the order of curves. A family of one curved two-holed orange buttons is a part of this order, this class, that phylum, and of course of the entire kingdom of buttons. So moving forward, let's go to our genus. Our genus is going to be small. So our genus will be small buttons. So we kind of have to use our judgment here about the ones that are small. So I'm going to choose my small ones. That one looks kind of medium. That's borderline small. Let's see if this is the same as that one or smaller. No, smaller, so that one is legit small. All right, so now I've got all of my small orange buttons with one curve and two holes. And again, kids, remember, this genus is part of the family, which is part of the order, which is part of the class, which is part of the phylum, which is part of the kingdom. They are all subsets underneath. We are going from general to specific, and that's how this works. So let's finally go to our species. Our species, we are looking for a species of orange button that is transparent. And looking at my buttons here, it looks like most of them are translucent. There might be one here that is transparent on the inside that we can use. Let me hold this one up here. This is the one I typically use. So you can kind of see through it a little bit there. And so I'm going to treat that as my species of transparent because everything else is kind of translucent. And of course these lighter ones here, they don't really qualify. So what I've done is I've done some taxonomy here in honor of Carl Linnaeus. We have done Kingdom of Buttons, Phylum of Orange Buttons, and from that we've broken them down into a class of two-holed orange buttons, an order of two-holed orange buttons with curves, a family of two-holed curved orange buttons with one curve, and then a genus of orange buttons with 2 holes, 1 curve that are small, and then a species of buttons that are orange, that have 2 holes, that are curved with 1 curve, that are small, but are also transparent. And so what we have here is we have a way of teaching taxonomy to kids where you can definitely get very specific by simply moving through kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I love this presentation. I love how it teaches kids taxonomy in a fun way. I encourage you to continue. What's a good follow-up for this one? Well, obviously you can create your own. You could create buttons, or I guess you could even create blocks. You could do this with beads. You could do this with all sorts of things at home, where you could have the kingdom of beads. You could have big beads or small beads. You could have colored beads, different colored beads. You can have all sorts of things that you can use at home to create this. So my challenge to you for a follow-up would be to create this a taxonomy, or a taxonomy at home that follows the scientific nomenclature. And nomenclature is a big word for fancy words. That's all it is, jargon. And I would also add that the best way to do this for kids, what I've done here, the best way to do this for kids is with note cards or strips of paper, where they can talk about, just label them the way that I've done this here. Obviously this was a teaching tool, printing these out, but create a taxonomy at home that follows the scientific nomenclature. I would highly recommend that you go kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, but you may find when you try this that you'll get only to a certain point, and then you'll have to stop because you didn't have enough distinctions to get even more specific. And that's actually one of the fun learning things about this, kids, is that really it does take a lot to really break it down into classification. There's a lot of distinct differences that you find, and this is the wonderful thing about nature. This is why taxonomy developed. How do we classify and organize all of the plants and animals and organisms in the world? There has to be some kind of system. All right, we have to look at a dandelion and a human being and say there's enough differences there that they're completely in different kingdoms. We have to look at a dog and a cat and say, yeah, there's differences, but they are still, mammals. They're still in this family of animals here. Or I think it's order. Double check me on that one. All right. So at any rate, I want you guys to really try this. I think it's class, by the way, Mammalia. I believe that's it. I really want you to try this at home. Have fun with this. This is a fun work. I love seeing kids do this at school. I encourage parents to break out the buttons if you have any, break out the note cards, break out the pencils, and have fun with this. So have a great day, kids. I hope you enjoyed this presentation on taxonomy. One last word. This is for everybody. This is one for everybody. I love this work.